like there's a risk, and it's like if you're willing to take that risk to perpetuate your legacy or die trying, then go for it. But just
I mean,
understand
but
what
I
it
mean, but
is.
what else you gonna do? What?
Passport, bro. So right now there's a large conversation on should men get married, right? And what I measure it on is cost benefit analysis, right? There's a benefit to every situation, but there's a cost as well. So when we're talking about marriage, you have to consider the risk versus the reward. For men, the risk is high. Right now, in terms of what the state and what the government implements, for men, it's high. There's a lot of thought in terms of like it's not worth the risk to get married. It's not worth the risk of if you get divorced and you lose half of everything that you ever earned, your retirement, you lose your house, your car, you lose all of this stuff. You have to pay child support, alimony. There is a large risk to getting married, right? And on the other side, maybe there's a benefit to getting married. Maybe there's a benefit to marrying somebody and producing a nuclear family and living that life. What do you say is the prescription or the idea of should men get married?
So I guess it's relative to the individual, because I think there's risk on both ends. There's less risk of not being married, but there's risk there, and that risk is you spend your time going out on more dates or spending time by yourself, traveling. I wouldn't say those are risks, but it's like if you don't have a purpose of growing a family or trying to have a nuclear family with kids or a legacy, then sure, that works for you. But if you're trying to get married, right, then you need to set your foundations, your principles, and then finding your purpose in order to find the person that allows you to feel comfortable that you need to get married. There's always a risk with that. And so to your point, right, I'm trying to make sure I answer this correctly. It's like, should men get married? I think you should get married if you believe that you are ready for that. If you're not ready for it, no one can tell you if you should get married or not. If you're not I wouldn't say financially, if you don't think you're capable enough of taking care of your spouse and your children, and not just from a financial perspective, just from an overall perspective, then you maybe shouldn't get married, because now you're putting other people that rely upon you in jeopardy or at risk. So for a man, if you feel as though that you have the things that allow you to be ready for a family, then I think you should try to pursue that for your own legacy purposes, for the procreation and being a productive member of society. Right? That's just at a high level perspective.
I mean, to be honest, I would start in the situation of like what benefits does marriage bring, right? Because you got to think about it, like the choices you're dealt with are get married, don't get married. Now, if you do get married, what's the benefit of getting married? And if you don't get married, what does your long-term lifespan look like? And then once you figure that choice out for yourself, then you have to determine if that's something that you're willing to deal with. Now, if you do decide, okay, well, long term, you're gonna want compassion, someone to spend time with. You're gonna want some companionship in the longer years of your life. So that's a really good reason why somebody would want to get married. But again, there comes with a cost, right? Potentially based on the court system, you could potentially lose a lot if you're a high earning person. So it's just like the risk. If I do prioritize having a companion much more than the risk of losing all my shit, then I think it's worth it for you to get married.
So here's the thing, right? We all know somebody that went through a nasty divorce. When 7 out of 10 women initiate divorce,
But it's not me though.
But this is the thing. Statistically, 7 out of 10 women initiate divorces. And we all know somebody that's went through a nasty divorce. What is the prescription? If you're talking to your younger self, what do you say? What is that conversation like? Because this is the thing, right? It sounds good to say, hey, get married, bro. Just go through with it. It'll be okay.
Yo, but
Just trust
every
the system.
successful business person will tell you, they fail so much. And even if they tell you their failure stories, is that going to stop you from, because they still made it, right? So there's always going to be failures in the thing you're doing, because anything great is going to come with that. I think the thing is, again, you have to assess it and say to yourself, okay, well, the option is take this lonely road until I die, or deal with the risk that comes with it and have the possibility of a long-lasting, successful relationship with somebody.
You have to mitigate risk.
So exactly. So and then
But
just from an IT perspective, it's like, what's your risk appetite, right? Okay, anything you do in life is risk. You walk outside, it's a risk. You drive, it's a risk. These things are risky, right? So if I were to tell someone younger or myself younger, it's like, prepare yourself, right? If you know that you have these financial assets and you worry about that, be very risk adverse with that, right? Okay, if whether you need to get a prenup or put things in a trust, and if you feel like that's something that you need to do in order to take it to the next stage, do those things so you can feel as though you're protecting yourself before you get into the situation. And I would advise that to both men and women if you have financial assets, right? But at the end of the day, right, you can't guarantee what's going to happen in your relationship, right? You just go for it. You fall in love, you go for it. You have relationships, you go for it. You go for a job. You don't know if they're going to fire you. It's at will, right? The job can fire you tomorrow at will. You sign the contract. You sign that thing, they pay you, and next thing you know, they don't need you anymore. And it happens. I mean, so you have to be really risk adversive in these situations and say, okay, well, is it for me? Can I manage this risk? Can I, anticipate what may happen and take it?
But I want to be tactical. Here's my thing, right? As a man, I have to say, you have to mitigate risk, and you have to vet your woman properly. Don't be pussy whipped. Don't go into the situation and just say, hey, I believe that she'll change once she gets the ring or blah, blah, blah. That's not the best situation to put yourself in. Number 2, get a prenup. Put your assets in a trust. You have to prepare that statistically there is a high chance that this could fail, so just prepare that if it fails, you'll be okay. I'm not saying that it's going to fail, but you have to be prepared. And a lot of times right now we hear in society is bro, just hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy to me. Hope is not a fucking strategy. You have to prepare. You have to mitigate the risk. Do your due diligence in the vetting process. And this is why I said when we were talking about dating is just you got to know what to look for. You got to know how to maneuver. You have to know how to set boundaries, because if you don't set boundaries properly, you'll get run over. And then you get run over in a divorce with a ring or with the state, and you lose half everything you earn. Now what? Now you
but the question that was posed was would you recommend being married or not, right? And I think in that sense, it's I'm not married. None of us besides Speedy is close to being married. Right, so I can't say it's the best thing to do, but that's what I've been told and pushed towards, and I can't say for sure it's the best thing to do. I've never done it yet, right? But that's what it seems like. That's what the studies show. That's what historical data shows, that being married is a source of happiness, long-term happiness for you, right? So I would say push towards it, right? It's going to be a risk. You're going to lose probably, you know what I mean? Who knows? But that's the better option. Right? And so it's if you're going to recommend it, I'm if you want long-term happiness, build yourself to be the best suitable person so that you have the best opportunities. It might still not work out, but at the end of the day, that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal, to keep on chugging regardless.
Well, all right. So let me add, because I didn't even speak on it yet, right? So, I'm getting married. So the answer is, should a man get married or not? Is definitely really specific to that person. But at the end of the day, you have to know what you're getting into. You have to understand that the person that you're with is on the same page with you. And I mean, that comes with premarital counseling. That comes with just years of knowing that person before you pop the question, give the ring. So in general, yes, it's a huge risk, especially if you're earning a lot of money. You could lose it all. But at the same time, you still got to put in that work. At the end of the day, a lot of these marriages end because lack of communication, lack of leadership. Everything that we talked about in the past kind of intertwines and implodes itself, right? So you got to always check in with your partner, always understand what the needs is. And honestly, it's not going to be rosy. But at the end of the day, it's work. And that's how I see marriage.
So for the men, okay, so when we know that the top 2 reasons that divorce happens is because of finances and infidelity, and as men, there may not be a large percentage of men that produce financially, and there may be a large percentage of men that cheat. If you know those 2 things to be true, how do you mitigate for marriage? Because this is my thing, right? I think every man on this panel believes that the nuclear family is the best way to progress society. I think we're all in agreement with that. But the process in which to facilitate this in this environment is tough. It's tough because women may not be thinking in the same way. They may be thinking in a way where, hey, if my man loses his job, he's on a clock. I'll give him 6 months. If he don't figure something out, I'm going off to the next guy. I'll be Tia Mowry. Right? We've seen this happen multiple times in society. We've seen it happen on the lowest of levels and the highest of levels. So I can't just say, hey, every man should just get married. And if you don't do your due diligence to figure out if this is the woman that you can spend the rest of your life with, and you haven't put the boundaries in and the mitigation factors in, I can't just prescribe every man should get married in this climate. That's my point. And
you're not prescribing that. What we're saying is do the work. Right? If you've done the work and you're in that headspace, then make the effort. But know it, just like business, you're going to go into it. There's going to be a lot of upfront cost, and you could lose. You know that going into it, and that's what is
it worth the loss?
Territory. But that's the whole thing, right?
I want to know from y'all, is it worth the loss?
If you're going into, I guess the question comes down to: is it similar to? Is it better to love or not loved at all? Right? And
that's
fair. It kind of comes to that, right? And it's like, you know, you talk about experience all the time, and like, how do you gain experience? And sometimes you probably need this experience. But to your point, it's how are you mitigating your risk as you're getting into this relationship? As we know the stats for divorce. We know how high it is. It's actually very risky to get married. But if you're a proactive person and you've not managed your risk, you have a risk appetite, then it doesn't seem, I wouldn't say it doesn't seem as bad, but it's like, okay, I found someone I love that I want to be with. I've managed my risk. I'm okay going with this, right? There's your prenups. There's your trust. And people may argue and say, well, if you don't love that person, if you do that, well, I understand the risk that I'm taking. Like, would you fly a plane that has 50% chance of failing? I don't think you would. But people get married knowing that that's the percentage of how many people get divorced. So with that being said, take precautions. That's the reason why on the plane they tell you the safety precautions every time, regardless if you're flying over the ocean or not. It's this protocol. So when you have relationships, you get married, there's protocol to that.
Yeah.
If you protect yourself, both men and women, and if things don't work out for, you know, irreconcilable differences or things like that, you both can walk away, right? Unfortunately, even if someone cheats or you just have financial issues, you both can say, you know what, just didn't work out. We tried, we learned. I'm open to getting married again, or I'm not at all. You have to have a risk appetite and prepare yourself.
Let's get closing thoughts on this. I wanna get closing thoughts. So, in 2024, with everything that's going on, how do you feel about marriage for men? Closing thoughts.
Like for the general populace, or
And
just myself?
Actually,
I don't.
Let me change it. I just want closing thoughts on what do you think is the landscape of dating, relationships, and marriage for men right now? Like, what do you see? What do you prescribe? What are your thoughts on that?
That's not a really easy question to answer, right? Because not all men are the same. So the men that we're talking about, right, are men like us, right, who have a lot more to lose. In a situation where we're talking about marriage and it being a risk, it probably isn't a risk for a lot of people. It really isn't a lot of risk for a lot of people, but actually beneficial. You have two incomes that you're dealing with, especially if you need that. That helps with the financial constraint. You have better members of society when you raise them. You'll have, children who live in a two-parent household, which is very important. It really depends, right? The guys we're talking about, right, are high earners, right? The ones who have already put it on the line. They have everything to put on the line, right? And yes, those mitigating factors are important, but that doesn't apply to everybody, right? So we can't really say, is it really important for every man to get married? But I can only speak for myself, right? And everybody here can only speak for themselves, whether it makes sense to get married. And for me, yeah, it does, right? Because with my fiance now, we got to know each other. We've built pretty much our values. We understand, we're on the same page, right? So whether I'm leading and she's following or whatever the case may be, we already have the direction that we're going to. We already established it. We're already putting in the work ahead of time. We're doing our premarital counseling, which is important. And honestly, even before you decide to make that decision, you gotta really know what you're getting into. You gotta understand what it really is, and you really gotta know who you're doing it with. And once you figure all of that out, I mean, it's a go. Again, there's always risk in everything you do. That's life, but
It was worth it to you.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. It's worth it to you.
Yeah,
Right.
and to add to what you're saying, I think for men, I think you really need to ask yourself, and this is where we talk about working on yourself, like, why do you want to get married? Like, what is your actual reason for getting married? And if you don't know that, don't get married right now. Like, take your time to write down why your pros and cons, the reasons why you want to get married, and then work towards that, right? And if you find a purpose, okay, you know, I want to get married because I want to have kids with someone, I want to have a legacy, I want to do these things. It gives you purpose, and with that purpose, you have meaning, you have a little bit of structure, you have a little bit of foundation. Hopefully, you find someone that's equally yoked with you that allows you to work through the challenges and ups and downs within that relationship to eventually get married and move forward and try to have a successful marriage. So my point to that is that if my thoughts about getting married, I think you should get married if you believe you have a purpose or reason for getting married. If you don't, and you just think that I'm doing because my family's pressuring me or this is what society says, then you may need to reevaluate that. Marriage isn't for everyone. It's not. Some people are better off by themselves, and they work efficiently, they live efficiently, they live a great, happy life. But take the time to figure out if this makes sense for you. Once you do your due diligence and you say, you know, okay, now I've done the work, let me go find a partner or find someone that aligns with what I have. And it may not, that's the 80-20. Find that 80% and then work with the 20 to get there. Same with you. I think if you do that, that'll help you, you know, find your purpose for why you should get married. But all in all, in conclusion, like, I think people should get married. Just for the man's perspective, or just from my perspective, like, with all that you have going on in life, having a partner or a significant other, whatever you want to call it, allows you to achieve certain things, allows you to propel your dreams and their dreams and go. It's better to have a person or someone who sees that with. Like, and if you take it from the biblical perspective, it's great to have someone that's with you, that sees that vision and goes, that allows you to get to the next stage. It's a lot easier in life. Imagine having two of you with someone who sees your vision to get certain things done and goals done, merging those incomes and finances and raising the kids. It's a lot easier to do that. And I think that's what makes life meaningful and purposeful. Without that, I mean, what are you existing for, right? And you got to figure that out.
No, I mean, he pretty much said all the shit I was going to say. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you that you should get married or not. I know that I want to get married. And you know, if you want to get married, figure out why, like he said, and everything that he said, figure out why, and go with that, knowing that there's risk attached to that, and it's just a part of it. And it might not work out, it might work out, and just if you understand your why, you'll push through, you'll persevere.
Here's what I'll say. Marriage is a game for the middle class. It's not for the rich. It's not for the poor. It's for the middle class who wants to perpetuate themselves, to put themselves in a position where they can reach upper class and develop a nuclear family. If you believe that you found a woman that can help you develop an effective and successful nuclear family, then get married. But here's my thing. It's like, just understand that it's get married or die trying. It's perpetuate a nuclear family or die trying. That's it. There's no other way to look at it. The risk is high. This is 2024. The risk is high. Back in the day, from every religious standpoint, the state was not involved in marriage. Right now, the state is involved, and there's a high risk to it. So I'm saying, obviously, every man on this panel wants to get married and they want to create a nuclear family, and I believe that that's the way to go. But you have to understand that it's like there's a risk, and it's like if you're willing to take that risk to perpetuate your legacy or die trying, then go for it. But just
but what else you gonna do?
Passport, bro.
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, if that makes you feel satisfied in your soul, then
No.
by all means.
I don't believe that.
I mean,
So
but then again, it all boils down to the
It
choice.
doesn't make you feel satisfied.
At the end of the day, it boils down to the choice. At the end of
How
the
many
day, I
times
know
can you
that
go to
there's a
Colombia
high
before it
risk.
gets old?
There's a high risk with getting married.
How many times can you go to DR before it gets old?
Some niggas
See
will
what
never
I
get
mean?
old.
I can't tell
I-
men to go do something if I know that that's not what it is. If I know that this isn't what's gonna make you be fulfilled. Men have purpose, and our purpose is to perpetuate our legacy and to fulfill our vision. I can't tell you to just be a passport bro if I know that that's not what's gonna ultimately get you a win.
So,
But I mean, but-
so it kind of boils down to them. Like when you say men have purpose, do we know that all men have purpose?
It's okay.
So,
So the question is
yeah.
to the men that want to have purpose
Yeah.
and you want to get married,
right, yeah,
right? If those are the things that you do want, we laid out some steps that you need to do
Yeah,
to get there.
absolutely, yeah.
Start with yourself, work on yourself, woo, woo, dot.
Yeah.
If you don't care for that, because
If it's not
I mean,
for you.
again, men could be biologically inherently born with purpose, and some men just don't want to apply it. Fine, that's their business.
That's fine.
And
That's
then
not who I'm
if-
talking to.
Cool. We're not talking to you.
I'm not
Yeah,
talking
We're
to
not
you.
talking to you.
yeah.
We go ahead and
It's
do
not
what you
for
want.
y'all.
Yeah.
But for the men that want to do something with their lives,
Yeah.
and they want to find purpose, or they have purpose, and they want to get married, or they are married and maybe it's not working out, whatever, that's the goal. Get married or die trying.
Wait. All right.
I don't know about that one. But go ahead, go ahead.
I didn't really catch all that because Amani says something that I want to talk. I want
Run your mouth. Run your mouth. Come on, run your mouth.
So
We here to
you
talk.
said marriage is only for the middle class.
Oh yeah, he did say that.
And
Marriage is the middle class
in the
thing.
middle class game, and it's not really for the rich. Unpack that for me. I want to understand where that comes
Run your,
from.
yeah, here
When
we
we
go.
see Dr. Dre, when we see all of these Anthony Andersons, when we see the people that have to pay $200,000 a month in alimony, when we see Tyrese crying on Instagram Live, when we see these things, this is not a game for the rich. This is not something that you take lightly. If you want to pay $200,000 a month in child support, cool. Go ahead.
But all right, but look at who they're marrying, right?
He
Did
married
they-
somebody who he thought that she was a good
But
woman.
hold on. But that's not like, that's the consequence of getting married and things not working
Jeff
out.
Bezos,
Right,
Bill
right.
Gates.
But what is the purpose?
Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates.
True,
Most of the
true.
women that are the richest women on the planet have inherited their wealth from marriage or from divorce, rather.
Sure. Let's say
That's a
that.
statistical
Let's say
fact.
that fact, right? But that wasn't the purpose of the marriage, right? I think the question here is trying to understand, like, should you get married knowing the risk well in front of you? And I think, like, if, like you said, to the guys that you're talking to,
Well, think about it, right? Most niggas ain't making that money anyway.
yeah, that's the one
Right,
percenters.
so
Middle
most of the
class.
dudes, yeah, right. Most niggas ain't making that. So this is not their problem.
So
Yeah.
That's not their problem.
To Petey's point, it's like when you say it's just for like the middle class or the upper class or not for them, like marriage can be applicable to any class, right? Because the values that you place on marriage is not at a monetary value.
Yeah.
It's looked at a different value or different perspective. So
When we talk about acceptable risk, the risk becomes less acceptable the more money that you make.
yeah,
If
it
I
does,
say,
sure.
would you bet $100,000 the Pacers will win tonight? Would you bet that?
But we
not
define
acceptable
we
anymore.
define marriage as companionship, right? Long term companionship and legacy.
You need to switch companionship to partnership because
I
companionship.
mean, like companionship in the sense that you're doing life with somebody. I mean, whatever you want to say. Like,
Companions are more of a dog. Like,
No, what?
No, really, no. Actually, the true definition of companionship, right, is really someone that you spend your time with, quality time with, but it's not a partner. Like a partnership, right, is the business partner. You partner in business.
but see,
It's not
but
companion.
so you're trying to make comparisons to relationship and business. I'm not saying that. I'm just
No,
saying like
it's a business
and
relationship. You signing the contract. when you get
companionship.
married.
Like when you're talking about marriage relationships, you're doing life with somebody.
Yeah. It's more than a companion.
No, I'm just using that in the
All right,
sense
yeah,
of
yes,
like
yes,
that's
yes.
an aspect of relationships, right? Quality time with the person, right? So that's what I'm saying. You're talking about marriage in the sense of companionship and legacy. That has nothing to do with your social economic status
You
or
have
how
to
much money
understand the
you're
purpose
making.
of monogamy. If you can't understand the reason for monogamy, then you can't understand the reason for marriage. This is it's a fundamental concept. What is the purpose of monogamy? Why do we enforce monogamy in society?
Because all the rich niggas get all the business.
Expound. That's what I'm saying. Expound.
That's what I'm saying. No, but truthfully, yeah, that's a perspective. right? Like we're not in that
Marriage inherently benefits women because
we're
you
not in that
ensure that you have a
we're
man
not in
to
that
yourself.
chaotic world now. We're in a different time. So based on current moments, we understand the history of it, right?
Alright, but let's circle back to the point of it. You know, why should men get married? Let's conclude on that.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
All right, concluding thoughts.
I thought we did.
I think we did.
That's what I'm saying. We did.
And then we had
In the current moments, you know what I mean? Like, we all agreed that, you know, if you're looking for companionship and longevity and legacy, you would probably want to get married.
All right. Well, anything else anybody want to say?
I'll say, you know, marriage can be for anyone. Just understand the risk that comes with it, regardless of your class, regardless of your monetary stature, where you're at in life. Like, understand the risk, you know. Just don't go with what society says. If you evaluate and see that marriage isn't for you, then it's not for you. But if marriage is for you, understand the principles, the values, the contract that you're signing with the government. Understand all these different things. Be very, very aware of what comes with it, not just the love aspect, right? So that way you can prepare yourself for the good and the bad of the things that are coming.
Yeah, also don't listen to scorn people. You know, a lot of successful business owners had multiple failed businesses, right? In the same way where, like, just because the relationship failed doesn't necessarily mean marriage in itself is bad. You know, just maybe you had a bad person or you made bad choices. So it's just that, you know, if you want it for yourself, it's going to work out for you if you are diligent, if you have integrity, if you're putting in the work, if you're growing, it will work out for you.
This is what they won't tell you podcast.
Yes, sir.
What they won't tell you.
Almighty, it's your boy Mozzie.